Hey, everyone. Welcome to the VO Boss Podcast and the Boss Superpower Series. I'm your host, Ann Ganguza, and I'm here with the one and only Lau Lapides.
Hey,
Woo!
Annie. Woo! Back again.
Happy 2025 and yet another year. Here we are. How many years? How many years, Lau? It's been years.
A decade? I don't know, 20? I feel like, we came out of the womb and we knew each other. I don't know.
Right?
It feels like forever, but it is over 2 years now. I think it's 2.5.
At least, if not more, if not 3. Lau, I'm telling you, I am manifesting that 2025 is going to be my best year ever. Ooh. And I say that because we've come off of a tough year, not just a tough year necessarily for your business, but just a tough year, I think, in general for everyone, mentally, physically. I mean, gosh, it's just been a tough year of 2024. Yeah. So I am ready for 2025, despite whatever may happen in the world. I feel like with this political climate, I want this to be the best year ever for my business. And so I think, I had a couple of podcast episodes and we do this all the time, right? End of year assessment. How are we going to make this year the best? But I really want to stretch, Lau, and talk about how we can go beyond the typical, well, let's write our goals down, right? And let's do this for the year. Let's talk about how we can really, I think, manifest success and stretch ourselves out to be the absolute best that we can be and to be mindfully and skillfully healthy for 2025.
Stretching. That's my thing. I love stretching. And when I say stretching, I mean really kind of motivating our folks to just move in directions that are uncomfortable, that you may not have experienced before. Those are the best, where you have no idea what the outcome is. Because the truth is, in our profession, we get seasoned after a while. We kind of know what to expect. We know kind of the behaviors of clients. We get to know that, right? But we always want to refresh. We want to feng shui the spirit. How do we do it? Put ourselves in an environment that we're not used to. That's going to help us grow. And as a talent, as a person, as a business entrepreneur, what could that mean? Well, some examples I like to give. Why not take a fencing class? Why not, get into a class where you're doing mime and you're not talking at all?
I love that.
How do you communicate through your body, through your mind, through your spirit, without the aid of the copy, of the script? This is all going to be, again, tools in the toolkit that you're going to pull when you get back in your booth and say, wow, how did I feel when I was locked into my body? How do I unlock?
Well, you know what I think? I love that. But I think before we figure out how we're going to stretch, right? Let's sage the space, so to speak, right? Let's sage the space. Let's clear the space, right? And what are some things we can do to kind of clear away all the, I like to say, clear away what was, last year. And now, how are we going to start fresh? How are we going to start new? How are we going to sage our space? And I mean, physically you could. I mean, I love sage. I'm a big sage burner. I like to sage it to create new energy. But that saging, right, could be maybe you decide to take up a little bit of meditation, a little bit of breathing exercises. I know that, stretching yourself mindfully, but also physically as well. I started taking Pilates last year, and I'll tell you what, I feel great, and I do it early in the morning. So as a matter of fact, this morning I was at 6:30 a.m. class.
Wow. Discipline.
So I can start my day right? I do a 6:30 and a 7:30 back to back. And I absolutely love the way it makes me feel in the mornings. And it really, and there's a lot of just default, there's breathing in there, right? Yes. And we talk as voice actors how important breathing is. And breathing is amazing. I mean, first of all, we breathe every day, but like focused, right? Conscious, like breathing exercises, which by default happen in my Pilates class, really help me to expel the negative energy and take in the new energy and really help me to feel more balanced, more focused, brings down my blood pressure. And you know what's so funny is I've learned to breathe so well that literally it becomes this challenge. Lau, you know that I still go see my doctor, my oncologist all the time. And they're always taking my blood pressure, right? So
That's what they do.
Yeah, for a while there, my blood pressure was high, and they prescribed medicine for me, right? And so ever since I was, I got myself a little bit healthier, thankfully, I have been, my blood pressure is actually a little bit on the lower side, but I also take my blood pressure every single day, right? Just to make sure I'm on top. I have learned how to breathe so that I can lower my blood pressure. Like, it's insane. And, in my little Peloton classes too, it's like if you can actually see your heart rate. And so if you do active breathing, right, you can see how it brings down your heart rate. So I think, saging the space, so to speak, or physically do it, but also sage the space, take some time in the morning for meditation and breathing to get you in the right headspace and physical space for a great day ahead and a great year ahead.
Oh, I love all of that. And, we've got to get out of that fight or flight breathing, which the truth is all of us do it. I mean, because we're running around, we're running all over the map, and we'll go into what we call the upper thoracic breath, the clavicular breath. That's our throat, our chest, whatever. Can we live? Of course. Can we have a great life? Definitely. Is it effective for speaking? Nope. It isn't. And that's our gift. That's our craft. That's our job, is to speak for a living. So we want to move that down into the diaphragm, and everything you're doing, Annie, is just a gift to be able to do that. And it harkens back to me when I was a young kid in college studying theater, that, some of my professors would use this saying. They'd say, leave your trash at the door.
Yeah.
When you walk in the studio, leave it there. Don't bring it in with you. That's your emotional stuff that you're bringing in. I'll give you new stuff to deal with. And don't worry. When you leave, it'll be there for you to pick up and take with you.
I'll give you new stuff.
Don't worry. I'll give you new stuff to deal with, right?
Unless you're using it, right, for the scene ahead, right? I mean, take it through the door if you need it but a lot of times that baggage, right, it's not always, I'm going to say 99% of the time. I'm going to say maybe that's not necessary for voice acting. Unless you're playing a role that calls for that.
Right. Yeah. I think that if you're going to use it as a reservoir of emotion to call upon, it has to be compartmentalized.
Yes.
It has to be disciplined and dealt with. It can't just be dumping. It can't be unloading your day or unloading your life in the space, because it's, number one, it's not professional or appropriate, but number two, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't make you a cleansed breath performer, which is where we want to go. We want to go to that full sort of centered, grounded place of where the breath is coming from. So I love that. No one loves sage more than me. I actually named my son Sage. So
well, there you go.
I adore sage. I think it's really important to just sage out
cleansing.
your space. Totally cleansing. Are we ready for some how-tos yet, Annie?
Yeah, sure. Let's go. Right. Let's do it.
I'm going to lay one on the friends that is really unexpected, but from an actor's point of view, it's very elevated technique. And look into it and go online and look it up. It's called rasa boxes, something you're never going to hear in voiceover. It's an elevated graduate level actor technique. And the baseline is you draw boxes on the floor made of tape, literal boxes. The actor steps into the box and becomes an emotion in that box. And it's very specific, and it's very much a deep dive and intense. And when they step out of the box, they immediately lose that tone. Immediately, 100% cleanse themselves of that emotion. Think about that. Like how many, the crossover to me is when you're doing like audiobook or you're doing character work. You're playing 10 different characters. You don't want any bleed of sound, right?
Absolutely.
Well, we don't want any bleed of spirit either.
Sure.
We want to know that if you're enraged, you're the witch that's enraged, that you step into the box where you're the peaceful fairy. And there's no bleed from one box to another.
But can you evolve that emotion? Can you be the fairy that is maybe angry to begin with and then becomes cleansed of that anger somehow? Can you have one foot in one box and one foot in another and play that way?
You know why I love you so much? Because you're brilliant and you're always 10 steps ahead. You just single-handedly skipped over 2 years of MFA graduate work. Because skip a year or two and you're going to start melding and shaping and mixing the boxes together. But the point is, it's intentional.
Yes.
It's a choice. It doesn't just happen because I can't control myself and my output.
I love that because, right, when I'm teaching acting for narration, right, one of my classes that I've taught in multiple places, I talk about how your emotion can evolve from the start of the sentence into the end of the sentence, and that requires control, and it does require focus, a lot of focus, in order to intentionally, right, go from one emotion to another to add that interest and that texture and that storyline.
Yes.
But
yes,
that's great.
And this is a physical, if you will, a physical incarnation of that, not just internal, but it's actually physical. So you can, like we used to do as little kids play, what do we call it? Hopscotch? We used to go from box to box. You're literally going box to box. And we're doing that in our life, too. We're going from script to script, character to character, intention to intention. But it defines it. I think that's where the stretch comes. How do I stretch the ability of going 100% deep dive immediately and then pulling out of that immediately? It reminds me of a professional ball player. So if you're like a baseball player, someone who's sitting on the bench, but they are not warming up. They are 100% ready to jump in the game and go.
Is there a script, Law, or is it you just, it's improv?
Well, I mean, the experiment of it is all improv, and then you can install that into your scripts so that you know exactly what the boxes are. So there's no sitting on the bench kind of saying, oh, I'm going to warm myself up into it. I'm going to figure it out as I go. It's either you're 100% committed to it or you're 100% out of it.
I love it. I think right now, cool? I'm looking at boxes right now. I think we can play this, not just physically, but I love the physical aspect of it.
It's a cool thing.
We can play
on
it
Zoom. We could do it
on Zoom too, because maybe Anne is the angry box, right? And maybe Law is the love box, right? If you think about it, and then we could just okay, improv, right? There we go. And so I'm not angry right now, but see, that would be tough for me, right? I've got to work. I'm gonna have to work on that because I don't like to be angry in my real life.
But here's the thing: you learn as an actor. You're not just, and as a voiceover talent, you're not just being that or becoming that. You're playing an action based on a situation. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So it's your job to figure out what's the situation.
Oh, yeah.
As we say, who are you talking to, right? What's going on?
That is so important, again, because we talk about, how are we evolving as successful, businesses with digital disruption and AI and an increasing, size of the industry, and how do we compete while we become the actor, right? That can evolve and meld with whatever we're being asked to do. And a lot of times I'll ask people to create that scene in which the words on the page will make sense and will allow you to connect with those words in a meaningful way. And so that's where a lot of times my students will be like, but wait, I don't they're like, oh, now I'm asking them to think. And it's but this is hard. And I'm like, it is. Yes. It's not if it were easy, we'd all be voice actors making millions of dollars. But even then, that would be kind of cool. But it's hard.
Also the commitment in the relationship. See, I think that's what makes it hard is you don't realize you're making a commitment to a relationship immediately without the intellect or the analysis that we want to take to be safe. Yeah. Right? Kids are great at that. If kids played Rasa Boxes as a game, they jump right in and be, the evil queen. They jump right in and be the fairy princess because they understand it from an emotional EQ, emotional quotient way. And so we're so intellectual these days which is fabulous. We want to be able to analyze our script, of course, but we miss the part where we're connecting our mind to our feet, to our center, to our heart, to the ground, right? It's actually quite Native American in a lot of ways. When you look at it, it's very soulful, it's very spiritual, it's very grounded to not only the spirits above us, the gods above us, but also the nature, the ground, the trees, the roots.
Love it. I love it. So that's a great game, I think. Now, is that something that are you I think we could definitely, I think we should have like a Zoom class on that. I think we should.
We should have a Zoom class. Maybe during
so much fun.
Maybe during our audition demolition. We'll
that
do some
could
of
be
that work.
fun.
Ooh.
That could be a ton of fun.
It is
Ooh,
fun.
I love it. And
it's
now,
hard in a good way.
Yeah. And so, Lau, what's the name of that again for our bosses out there that want to jot that down?
Yeah, the name of the technique is called RASA, RASA boxes. RASA boxes.
Awesome.
You should really look it up. And
Love it.
It's a sort of international kind of methodology that's used by actors of all cultural backgrounds to reach their characters deeply and quickly.
Right. Yeah, deeply and quickly. Now, that's the thing, because I've got a lot of students who, they're like, but this takes so much time. And I said, honestly, like, if you think about it, like, how much time did that really take? 10 minutes? Did I just work with you for 10 minutes on it? I mean, it's just one of those things where I asked you, okay, what's that moment before, right? And so what is that scene? Why are you saying, why are you even saying these words? What's the purpose?
Right.
And so, all right, so I love that. So we're saging, right? We're saging, we're cleansing, and we're meditating, we're breathing, and now we've got something that's helping us to stretch outside of our boxes, or in the boxes, so to speak, for the acting technique that we just talked about. What else is there, Lau, out there that can help us?
Well, I think you and I practice this all the time. Subconsciously we do, and that is the grounding. The grounding, and there's many techniques for grounding, but you need to ground yourself. In the acting world, we call it sinking in. We can tell if you're not sinking in because you're floating, you're somewhere floating, and we can see you, we can hear you processing the material still. You're not grounded, you're not centered, you're not sinking in. So and there's different ways to do that. Sometimes people will want a stone, a crystal, a liquid, something that's warm, that is with them and touching them and around them, that helps them ground their spirit. Sometimes it's just a mental focus, like athletes may do. They may visualize and say, I'm grounding myself to the ground.
Now, that's a physical. That's what I like, is that I'm getting that this is physical. And what I love, and I use this actually, Lau, I did steal this from you in a lot of my students, because I say, grab your heart. Right?
Yes.
Touch your heart, because then it's going to help to connect you with those words in a meaningful way, right?
Yes.
And I believe that will help to ground you as well, like literally. I mean, of course, I've got objects in my studio that I can touch, I can feel, I can connect to. But of course, since I'm looking at the script, right, I have to be careful, because I don't want to look away from the script, because then I might drop a word or two.
Of course.
Something like I say, I love, like, just grab yourself. That kind
and
of like
prep.
Just that, right? That
it's
kind
also
of
prep.
Connection.
Yeah. It's your prep. You can stop your session and do it at any time.
Yeah.
But there should be a prep for you, so that you're not going into it cold and expecting yourself to warm up as you go. But really grounding yourself and centering yourself as you're there. And I actually have found that to be very disturbing to many students over the years, and it probably was to me when I was younger, in that we forget that we have a muscle that's the biggest one. We have the heart. We forget what that is. And so it reminds us of not only love and warmth and connection, but death. Because it reminds you there's mortality as well as life. And that's something that, actors have to come to over aging and over time, because it just is a maturity thing. I think that when you feel your heart and this is my lifeline to living, it's also my lifeline to dying as well. And there's a beauty in that, not to be morose, but there's a beauty in understanding that you're vulnerable at all moments in life. You're not in control of anything.
I think the vulnerability, that's a great word. I mean, I think that literally, if I just had a word, to put in my studio, right, to help me to connect, right, and to get past the words of it all and the sound of it all, I think it would be empathy, right? Empathy would be the one thing, and what, I'm sorry, now I just lost the word that we just said. I think that's a great word too.
Well, the mortality, I like to think, is also connected to humility,
Yeah.
Modesty and humility and understanding we're not that great, that big, that important, that we can't be gone at any moment. So what that provides for us is the understanding of what others are going through. What others are traveling through in that journey.
And that takes away from the ego of it all, right?
The ego.
You can't like, I have something I say, a few times in my classes about being a great e-learning narrator is to be a great teacher, right?
Yes.
And if ego rules your classroom, get out of the classroom, right? If ego rules your acting in reality, right? It's really not about you. It's about serving your audience, your scene, and really doing that justice. Now, so we've got our sage, we've got our stretching to get out of the box. And so now I want to say, how can we...
And to get back in the box.
And to get back in the box. What are some things that are not necessarily voiceover related that we can do to expand, right, our creativeness and our creative brain? And I like to say things that aren't necessarily like voiceover related. And I'll start it off by saying, for me, if you can do it financially, travel. Traveling to another country can give you a wonderful perspective, and can really, I think, anything that can get your creative juices flowing. That and a good movie, right? So I watched a couple of great movies on the plane, going out to Europe, and then I was in Europe experiencing different people, different cultures, and just watching and listening and talking. And that allows me to grow spiritually, mentally, and it helps me in my performance. I mean, it helps me to draw upon different experiences.
Huge. Yeah. It's everything. Or even, this is what I've been doing recently, going to different areas and towns in my state that I've never been to before or have never heard of. And just kind of driving around, looking at properties, looking at businesses, to expand my universe as to what surrounds me that I have not paid attention to yet. And how does that make me feel? How do I relate to that? I think that that's important in me being able to bring it into my knowledge base, my mindset, and to that EQ, that emotional quotient of understanding how others are living, how others are connected to the universe, to the world, to the whatever, wherever they live. I mean, that's so important.
It doesn't have to be expensive. I mean, you could go to the mall and people watch.
No.
One of my most favorite things I like to do when I went to New York was just hang out, sit down, and watch people. Because you could just learn so much, by absorbing the energy. It's not even about necessarily do you have to go to a class to learn something? I mean, you could just be absorbing the energy. And for
Here's
me,
a fun one.
I like to be around positive energy, but sometimes being around negative energy also tells you then that's also a learning experience.
It reminds you too, how do you do that when you have to do that? Because you and I are pretty positive energies, and we try to stay hopeful in life and smile. But how do you do that when you have to do that? Maybe you're in a very somber or serious script. Maybe you're in a character that is deeply defeated or unhappy. How do I reach that? Again, Rasa boxes, how do I get into it very quickly and deep dive it? By understanding how people live, how they function, how they are in the world. That EQ, I think, is so, I would even venture to say, even though we're super intellectual beings, at least where we come from culturally, EQ is almost more important because it is really taking into consideration the other person
absolutely.
In a really important way, in a deep way that many people just don't do. They don't think to do that.
It's so about not you.
Ultimately,
Ultimately, it's not about you. It's not about you. But it is about you serving others or serving a purpose that can help you in the end, right? I think, it's not like you're not going to benefit if it's not about you. The fact is that it can benefit everyone, I think, if it becomes about, right, the person.
So listen, I feel a quote coming up, and I must allow it because I'm working on Shakespeare right now in one of my classes. As 'twere a mirror held up to nature. So that is the human spirit by Shakespeare held up to its audience. In other words, I'm the actor, I'm the performer. I'm just mirroring you, the society, the need, the value. I'm showing you your own humanity.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Or at least I'm attempting to. I'm attempting to do that. So in the mimicry, if you will, in the mirroring, there is a profound psychological effect with your audience. And it's not only like this business likability which comes that is important, but it's trust. It's a nugget of heart value that lasts people a whole lifetime, that I know you do, and I strive for that. It's sure we want to make money, sure we want to be successful, sure we want to do all that, but we want to make long, meaningful relationships with our audiences so that we can have that legacy.
Absolutely. I
right?
mean, it's all about the legacy. And you know, I mean, I hearken it back to, you know, I always kind of was that person who had a positive outlook on life. I mean, it was always like, you know, you and I are kind of bubbly personalities. And so I that kind of has run my life. And when things happen that are not expected, like, for example, when it's that were not in my control, I had health issues, right, that where all of a sudden I faced mortality, right? It amplified that it wasn't about me in reality. It wasn't about me. And what do I want to leave? What is my legacy? How do I want to be remembered, right?
Right.
And it really is about, like, well, you know, nobody, what is it, when you work 70, 80 hours a week, nobody like misses their work when they pass on, right? It's not like, oh, damn, I should have worked more. You know, it's more
a funny
like,
thought, though.
Right? I should have worked more, but really it's, you know, I should have lived more. And I think that, you know, really kind of planning and making time for that is important. So, you know, my husband the other day, he, you know, now where he works, you can take a mental health day. He took he took a mental health day. You know where he went? Disney. He went to Disney.
There you
and,
go.
you know, Disney's a great refresher for creativity. I'll tell you that. Because you can just go and relax and have fun and allow yourself to feel. Right.
Yes.
And not necessarily be, you know, beaten down by the stresses of
just
your
be
work
present.
life. Just
be present in the moment, having enjoyment, having fun, having an honest enthusiasm. Right. Right. Now, who said this? Nothing great was ever achieved without enthusiasm.
Yeah.
I have to look up who that was, but it's so true.
It's funny because everybody's like, well, what, he went alone? He went by himself? And I'm like, yeah. I said, look,
of course.
Jerry looks at Disney the way I look at shopping. Like, I can go shopping for hours. I mean, hours. I mean,
Absolutely.
when Jerry travels, I go like on a Sunday or a Saturday. I'll go to the mall for like 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours, believe it or not.
Sure.
You know, have some dinner, just walk around, and observe. That's what I do. I observe.
Okay.
Right? That's a lot of what I do. I mean, I shop too, but I observe, and I literally could do that all day long. So I'm like,
So I have a question.
I love to do that.
Okay, so does that fall in, just to circle back, now is that now falling into the rejuvenation factor, the regenerating?
Yes.
Does
For
that
me,
fall
yes.
into that stretch factor of like, what are you doing to rejuvenate and regenerate that helps you stretch, helps you grow, helps you learn, all these
How
things?
How does shopping help Anne grow? Well, you know, believe it or not, in a creative sense, right? We know that I'm a fashion buff, right? I'm not necessarily buying everything up in the stores, but I'm curating, I'm looking, I'm combining, I'm doing that creative, like, you know, whatever it is, that creative assemblage in my head and building outfits, whether I actually purchase anything or not, that's, you know, and then I'm looking at people, I'm saying, oh, I like that. Look at that would look good with that. And so I'm exercising. It is, believe it or not, it's a creative exercise for me. And, and Jerry's like, oh, you're out shopping again. No, I'm creatively exercising my, you know,
I'm stretching.
This is going to help my business. I'm stretching. This is going to help my business. But it is something like that. And, you know, I always say watching a great movie, you know, something that can move you to an emotion, to tears, to happiness, to joy. You know, that is invigorating. And that to me is like, okay, I want to make someone feel like that, or I want to have an impact like that. And how can I achieve that? How can I do that through my day-to-day voice acting, right? Because voice acting, I mean, we all know because we're all in it, right? But it's not to be minimalized. I mean, it's not just, it's just voice acting. Hell no.
No. I mean, that's something
harder.
that someone says from the outside, not
exactly.
from the inside, right? When you're inside of it, everything's a challenge.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh yeah, Meryl Streep makes it look easy, right? She's an amazing actress, right? But that did not happen overnight. It did not happen overnight.
Right.
And I think that there are just, you know, of course, there are people who have gifts, but I'm not to say that those gifts don't require work,
but that's
to develop and grow.
That's the actor challenge, though. When you see great actors, it looks easy. It looks like it's natural. They're born doing it. They don't need coaching. They don't need classes. They just do it. No, you haven't seen the whole back end of that. And they continue learning,
back
growing.
End of a lot.
Yeah, Johnny Depp is famous for going right into the culture and the mindset in the background and living it for a couple months before he shoots a film. You know what I mean? It's like hard work. There's a lot of hard work involved in building authenticity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And
absolutely.
is there not like a bit of a, what's the word, paradox in working so hard to building authenticity that has a technical kind of fake structure to it, and that is, being on a microphone. So, right? But you have to be able to do that. You have to be able to do that and balance both.
Yeah, it's I love this conversation. This is such a great beginning of the year conversation because it's so different from just write your goals down. And of course, I still think you should write your goals down. But hey, before you do that, right? Take stock. Sage out, get yourself out of the box, go through these steps and then stretch, right? And then do something that will stretch your creativity even further so that you can have the absolute best 2025 ever.
Unbelievable.
Oh my gosh.
I feel like we should have, for that segment, we should have shaved our heads, been on a mountaintop in Tibet and drinking really delicious tea.
Yes,
I feel we missed that part of it, but it was extraordinary, as always.
Next episode, Lau and I will be coming to you from, drinking our tea. Oh, my goodness. Bosses,
delicious.
It's been amazing. Thank you, Lau, as always. It's just a pleasure, and I look forward to our next episode together. Bosses, you two can connect and network like bosses, boss superpowers, and find out more at ipdtl.com. Big shout out to our sponsor. You guys have an amazing year, week, day, all that good stuff, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.